Hey Google, let's get the show started.
Welcome to Questions and Alan with our very own Alan Furstenberg.
Hey, I'm Alan, and I am here to answer your questions and help you with your problems with the designing and developing for the Google Assistant. Hey Google, what's the word on the street?
Everyone wants to know what a scene is in the Actions Builder.
Yeah! Hey Google, that is a fantastic question. Can you bring up that diagram I was talking about?
Sure, here's the diagram from Google.
Great. Now, I know this may look complicated, and those of you who are just listening in, you can't see it at all. But that's okay, because it's really not as hard as it may seem. Most of it, in fact, is just talking about how we are building the prompt that we're going to send to the user. So all of these elements, we'll build it up, stacking them one by one and putting them in what's known as the prompt queue. It then takes the elements that are in the prompt queue, puts them all together in a way that makes sense, sends that to the user, gets a response back, and we handle that response. So fundamentally, that's really all we're talking about here. It's not that bad. Hey Google, does that make sense?
I guess. But how do we generate those prompts?
Well, we generate the prompts through a number of different ways. So several of the squares can generate prompts on their own. So for example, when you first enter a scene, you can generate a prompt. You can add a prompt to the prompt queue. As you are filling in slots, you may ask questions of the user, and these questions can go onto the prompt queue. Now, putting stuff onto the prompt queue can either come from static choices that we have set for either of these, or by calling a webhook that will return the prompt that we want to add, or even do both. The point is that as we're accumulating all of these, we'll be adding them to the prompt queue. Then when we send the message, we put all of them together in a way that makes sense and send it to the user. Prompts can be things like the static text or the speech that we may say, or it could include suggestion chips or other rich media, or pretty much whatever we want. It's basically what is being sent to the user. Hey Google, those are prompts.
So that covers what we say. How do we handle what the user says?
Right. So what the user said, basically it's the part in the middle with lots of branches that seem to go in every direction and seem pretty confusing. But it's not, because what we can get back from the user breaks down into a bunch of fairly straightforward things. So for example, it could be a valid intent that we have set up for the scene. We've told it what the user could say, they're saying it. Or it could be a global intent that we've set up that'll work anywhere in our entire action. Or it could be a system intent. This is something that may trigger specifically in that scene, or something again that is also global. So things like we could set up a specialty for what we do if there's no match in that scene, and that is a system level intent. Or they could be doing something like filling the slot that we just prompted them for. If they are filling the slot, we can run validation on it. When we do that validation, it can say whether it's valid or not. And if it is valid, well, maybe we'll go and ask for the next one. If it's not valid, though, we'll probably need to reprompt for it. And there are other conditionals that we can apply and check for at each stage. No matter what kind of response we get, though, we can treat this in several ways. So we could transition to a new scene, where we start this whole thing over again for what's going on in that scene. Or we may loop back towards the beginning of this same scene and start building up our prompt queue all over again. But either way, we're in this continuous prompt cycle in the scene itself. Hey Google, those are the basics about a scene. How did I do?
Well, the documentation at https://developers.google.com/assistant goes into details about scenes, and I'm sure there are more questions coming. Till then, say goodnight, Alan.
Good night, Alan.